Well, good morning, lovely ladies and gentlemen. Steve Collins coming to you this morning from beautiful, rainy, shockingly, San Antonio, Texas, the second most powerful, passionate, purposeful coach and speaker in the world. 18 years ago, those of you that were alive, there's a young audience, may remember the events that unfolded this fateful day in New York City. One of the themes that is discussed on a regular basis when we reflect is never forget, always remember, never forget, always remember. By the way, this is an extremely important reality of honor. In fact, most people have never put two and two together to recognize this is actually a biblical thing. All throughout the Old Testament, whenever God did something significant or something significant occurred, there was always a point of remembrance. There was always a point of reminder, whether an altar was built or whether stones were stacked or whether there was something put into place of a remembrance or noted as a remembrance. Remembering was very, very important, not only to remember the painful tragedies and issues as a cautionary tale and reminder, but also as a point of reflection to look back on victories. And remembrance is a really big deal. As we move forward, New Testament, we look at what those of you understand as communion. This is a very powerful act and observance when Jesus broke the bread and handed out the cup of wine and said, however often you do this, as often as you do this, as you break this bread and drink this wine, as often as you do this, you proclaim that you remember me. So remembering is very important. Never forgetting is very important. And yet I would challenge you today to consider that change is the greatest form of honor as a result of truly remembering. You know, it is a statement that says people who don't know history, they're doomed to repeat that history. So when we take the idea of remembrance and turn it into a catalyst for our own personal change, our own personal growth and development, in my humble opinion, we truly honor the memory. What good does it do for someone to say, take communion in remembrance of the great sacrifice of Christ, tearing his body and bleeding his blood to forgive the sins of mankind, just to remember that in that act and yet not to change, to follow the principles that he set into place as an act of love for us, to give us, life hacks. Here's how you can avoid being miserable. Here's how you can get on track when you blow it. By the way, that's what I think my BIBLE is. It's not so much a guide for how Steve Collins can be a good little boy and not offend everybody. It's how I can get back on track when I blow it. I don't know about you, but do you blow it as often as I blow it? I pretty much blow it all day, every day, all the time, and the ability to get back on track is important. So what good is it for me to have a remembrance of Jesus through communion without taking that memory and making a decision to change, to actually follow his ways? Do you see the value in change? Remembering is good, not forgetting is good, change is better. How can you apply that with the memory of 9/11 today and what occurred? I'm going to suggest you consider this. This was the morning that over 3,000 people may have left an argument at the home, may have left a challenge and hopelessness with a child, may have left business undone, or an opportunity to say, I'm really sorry for how I treated you and what I said. Will you please forgive me? There were people who felt and believed that there was always going to be time to get it right. Always going to be time to make it right. Well, when I process through all of this, then maybe I'll forgive. Well, when I work through all of this, then maybe I'll let them go. Well, no, I'm going to hold that over them until I feel I'm good and ready. And there were people who went to work in New York this morning 18 years ago who were never going to have an opportunity to humble themselves, to take the action that they know they needed to take in order to fix the stuff with the relationships in their lives that needed to be fixed. So how can you take the memory of 9/11 today and the memory of those who lost their lives and turn it into a catalyst for change? How can you do that? I'm going to suggest, who have you needed to forgive that you haven't forgiven? And hear me on this discourse now. Forgiveness doesn't mean I'm aight with what they did. Forgiveness does not mean we good now. Forgiveness does not mean let's go to Starbucks and celebrate. Forgiveness does not mean that doesn't hurt anymore. Forgiveness does not mean I trust you now. Forgiveness does not mean we good. No, forgiveness is a decision. It is an act of the will that comes from, really, quite frankly, obedience to the Bible, because God knows how terrible it is for us to hold on to unforgiveness, which creates bitterness and frustration and anger, and it just creates this root of ugly, toxic stuff that comes out of us. Those suckers who hurt us might not even remember. They might not be thinking about it. So this act of forgiveness is a gift to ourselves that we give, a decision that we make to say, I am no longer going to allow the offense that that person did or said to affect how I show up in life. I'm going to forgive them and let it go. It doesn't mean you're all right with them and it's good. It's an act of your will to decide for yourself. Who do you need to forgive today? Might be a good day to do it. Who do you need to humble yourself to and have a heart-to-heart conversation with? Might be a good day to do it. Been thinking about buying your wife flowers? Go pick some up. Been thinking about doing something special for your husband? Probably should consider doing that. Been putting something off that you know you shouldn't be putting off? Might want to execute on that today. Take the memory of those who did not have the opportunity to make things right and change. Use the knowledge of their deaths as a seed that has been planted that gives you the opportunity to make a decision to do something that you know you need to do, something you've been putting off, something that needed to be said that you have not said yet, mending a relationship that may be jacked up, an opportunity to humble yourself and get things right, because friends, you just don't know the time we have left. Everybody thinks we have time. Everybody thinks we have time. I love what that old preacher said. He goes, everybody wants to go to heaven. Ain't nobody want to die to get there. We don't know when our last day is going to be. We truly have no idea. We have no clue. So what is greater than remembering? What is greater than never forgetting? I'm going to propose to you that it is taking that knowledge of remembering and making a decision to change, to do the thing they wish they could have done, those that lost their lives that day. If they were able to be interviewed in heaven and they were told, if you knew you had 24 hours, what would you have done differently? I imagine husbands and wives would have reconciled. I imagine parents with teenagers would have just done what they had to do to get it right. I imagine people who hadn't called their mother and father in a long time would have called their mother and father. I can imagine that the vacation that they just keep putting off and deferring and thinking about, maybe some of them would have got on a plane and gone that day. I don't know. What I do know is people who are given a second chance tend to take great advantage of it, ladies and gentlemen. So what is greater than remembering today? What is greater than never forgetting? It's taking that knowledge and making a decision to change and do something you would not have done had you not had the opportunity to reflect on the thousands of people who, if given a second chance with an extra 24 hours, might have made some significant decisions because they realized and would have known their time was short. What decisions can you make today? What choices can you make today? What actions can you take today that honors the memory of those who lost their lives. I hope today you decide what is really important. And if your ego is in the way, just let it go and get rid of it. Humble yourselves and just do the next right thing. Honor the memory on this day. Have a great day, guys.